I met my wife at a bank. It was a Wednesday afternoon. It was about 1:15 p.m. and I was doing something, but I'm ahead of myself. I'm a musician, I'm a mentor, but as you've heard, I'm also an ordained minister. What you might not know about me is that I'm a romantic. No, I am a romantic. I am a Take Her Flowers in the Rain, Peebo Bryson, James Ingram, Luther Vandross romantic. As a young man navigating, I'm just going to tell a little bit of that story. As a young man navigating, trying to live a life in ministry and music and doing what I do, and being the romantic, I was trying to find a good person who I could live forever with. And I thought I met her, and I met this young lady, and she could sing. Not just sing, she could sing. And she was beautiful, and we struck up a friendship, and we got to know each other, and we fell in love. Or so I thought. Because over time I came to discover that she was in love with somebody else. When I found this out, I went and I confronted her, and we had a discussion, and she cried and cried and cried and said how sorry she was. But I wondered, why is she crying and I'm the victim here? But I decided that I would move on and I would live my life. So I started to do what came naturally to me, is to dive into my work, dive into my calling, love what it is that I was doing. And I thought to myself at that time, I've made a mistake. The reason I didn't get a good relationship is because I was hanging around people who didn't have the spirit. Not the spirit, the spirit. I honestly thought to myself that if I grew up in a church that was not charismatic, but if I go to the charismatic circles, I will find a girl who's full of the spirit. And this will be the one. And so I did. I found a girl who was beautiful, who was lovely, and she could sing. And we struck up a friendship and fell in love. Or so I thought. Until I discovered that she was in love and had a relationship with somebody else. And so when I found out, I went and I sat her down and I confronted her and we talked. And she cried and cried and cried. And said how sorry she was. And I asked myself, why is she crying and I'm the victim here? But I decided this time to move on, but I was done. I really was done. And so I decided what I'm going to do is focus on my music. I'm going to focus on my ministry. I'm going to just do what I felt came naturally to me. And I did. And I found success. And right here in this theater, we sang, and Kenya knew us, and East Africa knew us, and the world began to know us. And I became famous and focused on what it was that I was doing. And then I was minding my own business, and I thought I heard the voice of the Lord. Concerning this other girl. And I was sure that she was the one, because this was number 3, 1 for the Father, 2 for the Son, and 3 for the Holy Ghost. And she wasn't ordinary. She wasn't those who just like stood out or what have you. She was there. She was a supporter. She was at almost every concert, and she was not, jumping up and down everywhere. I said, this is perfect. I even told my mother about this one. And you know that it's serious when you tell your mama. I bought a ring, and I decided after prayer that I would give her this ring. And I gave it to her. And I thought it was going to work out. But alas, this relationship disintegrated. We grew further and further and further apart until one fateful day I realized, actually I was in this precincts when I realized this relationship wasn't going anywhere. 3 months later, it was the end of the year, I decided to break it off. That relationship ended sadly. It was very sad. No drama, no tears, no serious discussion, no why am I the victim here, none of that, just sad. And I was devastated. I was completely devastated. And then a friend, close friend who knew me, a lady came and tried to console me. She said, Pete, these ladies don't fully appreciate who you really are. They don't appreciate it just because they don't see a future with you, because you don't seem to have money. This is my friend trying to console me. And so I was actually devastated. This thing completely ruined me, and I was so depressed, I actually contemplated suicide. And the one thing that stopped me, I think, one of the things that stopped me was the fact that just the whole idea of pride that I killed myself over a woman. I said, it's not going to happen. Jaluo man is not going to go out like that. And this time, for real, I was completely done. I mean, I was done, like completely done. And I built up a wall. And I say I was done because I built up a wall and I said, no one is ever going to reject or hurt me again. And that kind of pain drove me further into my success. And I became a success probably because of the pain that I was feeling. And my life, though, took a turn over a certain period because of a few things, which I'm going to say now. One day, one of the young men that I was mentoring introduced me to a very passionate, very talented, very creative woman who said that she wanted to sit down and talk with me. And so we sat down and had coffee and said to me, what is your vision? And I related to her my vision, and we connected. And she said, I like what you're doing, and we hit it off. And she decided that she was going to partner with me in the business of music. And we did really good, and it was such a phenomenal time. And which is the reason why I was in the bank. Because this woman had poured in her life savings into my business, and I said, great. And so one of these days, I went to the bank, and I was transferring money from that Standard Chartered bank that was on Kimathi Street to my bank, which was on another side of town. And the customer service agent, the one who was sitting at the front, came to me and introduced me to this lovely, graceful girl. She wore a cream short-sleeved blouse, a black skirt to her knees, and black pumps. Her hair was in this short bob, but I was done, remember? She was very attractive, had an extremely beautiful smile, but I was done. I had built up this wall. And I turned to her, I said hello, and walked away. But I kept meeting her. I kept meeting her over time, and we kept meeting, and over time, we struck up a friendship. But I was done. And this friendship was completely platonic. I said everything scary to this woman. I was focused on my career as a musician. I was focused on my work as a writer for a magazine that I was working for at the time. I was focused on my radio show, which I was happy with. And I was done. I wasn't interested in pouring my life into somebody else or letting down my wall. Part of my job for the magazine involved going to entertainment events and writing about these things. So we decided a new Will Smith movie had come out, and I said, I'm going to watch the Will Smith movie. So I invited this friend of mine, this cream-bloused, black-skirted, pump-wearing young lady, graceful woman, bob hair, to this film. And so I was in there, taking mental notes. You kind of like write in the dark, taking mental notes until 15 minutes into the film, and I turned to the right where she was sitting, and suddenly I realized I was falling for this girl. And I said, this cannot be happening. I was done, remember? And once you're done, you're done. And so I realized that there was this tension, and I wanted this to change. But I didn't know that my life was going to change until two very important things happened thereafter. Shortly after this incident, my business partner called me, and she called me and said, there's something I need to tell you. And I said, okay. She said, you should just marry me. And I laughed it off as a joke because, she had those kind of crazy jokes. So I said, you got jokes. But I didn't realize that she was actually serious. And when I met her later, she said, listen, it's the only thing that makes sense. And if you don't, then I'm going to have to leave. And I felt blackmailed. And remember, my wall was up. And so I said, you should go. And she left, and along with her leaving was all her input. And I was still reeling from this and trying to find my bearings when a day or two later I got a phone call from the cream-bloused, black-skirted, pump-wearing, bob-shaped hair girl that I'd taken to the film. And remember, I had, in my mind, said I was done. I got a phone call from her saying, I'd like to tell you something important. So one night I was just tossing and turning and tossing and turning, and I said, I'm going to meet this girl, but I'm tossing and turning, and I said, what's really going on? And I did the natural thing that comes to a minister of the word. So I prayed. And I heard a still small voice, the voice, I believe, of the Lord that said, she's the one. And I felt two distinct feelings at that time. Two distinct emotions. One was joy, great joy. I found the one. And the other one was great fear, because I haven't told her yet, will she reject me? I made up my mind that day to not say to her to bide my time and wait until the moment came. And that's when that phone call came. And she said, I'd like to tell you something important. So we went to one of the malls, and she went to an ATM and withdrew. I think she was going to get some money to go and do some shopping or something. And then we stayed there for maybe 15, 20 minutes, I don't know. And then we went to the car. And when we went to the car, she was driving. She sat in the car and didn't switch on the engine and turned towards me with that smile and looked at me with her hands crossed in her lap. And I said, what? And she said, you're really a man of God. I truly believe in you. And then she pulled out an envelope, a white envelope with 10,000 shillings in it. 10,000 shillings of the 12,000 shillings that she took home after taxes. That was 5/6 of her entire salary at that time. And I was confused. And I heard that voice saying, tell her now. And I opened my mouth to say something. And James Ingram, Peebo Bryson, Luther Vandross all let me down. They left me at my hour of need. I had nothing to say. And I was confused. And she just smiled, started the car, and there was an awkward silence as we drove for the next 10, 15. And we got to my dad's house. And we got to the gate. She turned again to me, and I started to say something. My mouth opened. My brain disengaged. And I was looking for something to say, and I had nothing. And I just blurted out something like, I like you a lot, and then I dashed out of the car faster than a man being chased by a swarm of bees. And I was at home kicking myself, saying, what kind of idiot am I? What did I do? Because I'd lost the opportunity of a lifetime, but I was afraid of being rejected. But I kind of liked her. In fact, I more than liked her. I actually loved this girl, but I couldn't tell her because my wall was up higher than Donald Trump could build or dream. And then the phone rang, and it was her on the other side. And she said, what did you want to tell me? I think she kind of had an inkling of what it was I wanted to say. And I suddenly got serious. And I said, you know all about me. You know my vision. You know what it is that I want. I just want to tell you, will you marry me? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this taking her flowers in the rain, Luther Vandross, James Ingram, blah, 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 yada, 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 proposed over the phone. I did. Because I was afraid of being rejected. Because I was afraid of being treated, because I had nothing to offer this woman. And I said this thing and I waited. As I waited, I began to hear her softly sobbing in the background. And then she said, I'll call you back. And she hung up the phone. And I was there in this tiny corridor of that house in Woodley Estate where I had pulled that rotary phone for privacy. And I fell to the floor and my heart began to fill with the fear. Would she reject me? Would she call me back? Is this the end? Will I never be happy? Is it because I have a curse of being in ministry, curse of being in music? Will this woman? And there was pain and fear in my heart. And then the phone rang. And it was her on the other side. And she said, yes, Pete, I will. I will marry you. And we were married about a year later in the El Nino period of 1997. I remember I sang at the wedding. And we went through life, and it was amazing. It's been an amazing journey. We have two beautiful daughters, two amazingly beautiful daughters, one who's turning 19 this year, another who will be 17 this year. But that's not the end of the story. Over the last 3 or 4 years, on top of all the ups and downs of ministry, of having and not having, and going this way and going that way, and the ups and downs of the tectonics of marriage, the last 3 or 4 years, my wife, Christine, has had to have 2 life-threatening surgeries. Of one of them, we thought she had cancer of the breast. And I remember that fearful day when I came home and she showed me the bleeding in her bra. And I said, we must see a doctor. After consulting 2 oncologists, 1 doctor, he said, we're going to have to operate. In the midst of going through this operation and really thinking about this, I was afraid that she was going to die, and she was afraid that she was going to die. So she did 2 things. She wrote her will, and then she also wrote a letter. in this letter, I can't remember 100 things that she said, but she said a lot of things. But she said one thing that really grabbed my attention and shook me. She said, when I'm gone, this is the person whom I'd like Pete to marry. What kind of craziness is this? Who does those kind of things? Ladies and gentlemen, I thought I was the lover until I was loved like this. Because I realized that love isn't just romance and flowers in the rain and Luther Vandross, yada, yada. But love believes. Love trusts. Love is also selfless. And love sees who you can become and how much better you can become and believes better and gives better for you. That's what that episode taught me. And I realized then that love conquers all. I realized then that I was loved in a way that I had never loved anybody. And I realized that love isn't just the chocolate and so on, but love takes courage. Love takes faith. But I realized from this effort more than anything else that love is a choice. I'm learning to live with the fear of rejection because love conquers even that fear. And that's my story.